They say that the universe whispers its truths not in thunder, but in silence. And yet sometimes that silence trembles, pierced by rumors of wanderers, 7 of them, coursing through the great black ocean toward the fragile blue island of Earth. They are comets, icy relics older than memory, older than the sun itself. 7 messengers, veiled in their own vaporous shrouds, born in the frozen gulfs beyond Neptune or perhaps beyond the solar system altogether. In their tails lies frozen water, dust, and the chemistry of beginnings. But in their trajectories lies a deeper terror, that their paths may one day intersect with our own. It begins as a story whispered between observatories and amplified in headlines. Astronomers speak of faint intruders, of new catalogued objects, of a certain comet named 3I Atlas, an interstellar wanderer, stranger to this family of planets, cutting across our sky with alien intent. And when that story folds itself into the rumor of 7 more comets, all seemingly threading their way inward, the imagination bends into fear. 7 chances, 7 visitors, 7 shadows across our epoch. The mystery is not only scientific, but existential. For comets are paradoxes made visible. They are time capsules of creation, yet also weapons of annihilation. They have delivered water and perhaps the spark of life itself, but they have also carved scars into planets, emptied forests of their creatures, and extinguished dynasties of life in moments of celestial violence. To speak of them is to speak of the double-edged nature of the cosmos. Picture, for a moment, the Earth rotating quietly beneath its atmosphere, continents asleep under a velvet night. Beyond that fragile dome, in the immensity of emptiness, 7 wanderers drift in silence. No sound accompanies their glide, only the mute unfolding of trajectories written in equations we barely comprehend. They carry no malice, no purpose, and yet to us, their arrival seems almost personal, almost fated, like verses of a poem written by forces older than stars. Are they truly coming? Is the rumor of 7 comets a shadow of truth, or a distortion born of human fear? If so, what does it mean that objects of such enormity, of such ancient silence, might converge upon us? The answer is buried in observation, mathematics, and history. But before science can calm or confirm, the human mind conjures stories of endings. Oceans boiled into vapor, skies darkened by ash, civilizations reduced to whispers under the weight of celestial fire. This is the tension at the heart of the mystery, between knowledge and ignorance, between wonder and dread. 7 icy travelers, a single fragile world, and the infinite silence that lies between them. The first glimpses are always fleeting, frail streaks of light against the canvas of the night. Human eyes, sharpened by millennia of gazing upward, are trained to notice what does not belong. Astronomers, both professional and amateur, know the sky as a cartographer knows a coastline. They memorize its constellations, its familiar motions, its cycles of rising and setting. And so when a faint smudge, a hazy traveler, appears where none should be, a question awakens: what is moving there? History has repeated this moment countless times. From the ancient Chinese court, astronomers carefully etching the passage of comets into bamboo strips, to medieval Europeans who sketched strange-tailed stars in illuminated manuscripts, each sighting carried the weight of omen. But in modern times, when lenses and sensors replaced naked eyes, the first glimpse came as numbers pixels shifting subtly on CCD detectors, photons captured by wide-field surveys that tirelessly scan the heavens. In a desert observatory, under skies unmarred by city light, a camera clicks through its endless watch. A software algorithm notices a faint object sliding between the fixed stars. Night after night, the motion repeats, subtle, deliberate. Coordinates are logged, positions cross-checked against catalogues of known asteroids and comets. The verdict comes quietly. This object is new, and not alone. One by one, in different corners of the sky, similar intruders reveal themselves. They do not blaze like meteors, nor thunder across the firmament. They whisper. Their light is faint, their tails not yet unfurled. Only those who look with patience and precision notice their approach. It is in this patience that discovery is born. The rumor of 7 such wanderers finds its roots here in faint signatures across the detectors of automated surveys like PanSTARRS and ATLAS, projects designed to guard our planet by watching the dark. To the casual eye, the sky is immutable. To the watchful machine, it is alive with movement, each flicker a potential messenger from the outer dark. And yet, discovery is not certainty. The first glimpses carry doubt. Is the arc true or an artifact of observation? Is the object a fragment of dust, a near-Earth asteroid, or a true comet with frozen reservoirs awaiting the sun's touch? Scientists must compare nights, refine positions, calculate orbits. In these calculations, the mystery sharpens. These are not mere drifting rocks. Their paths are long, looping, some parabolic, some hyperbolic, as if hurled inward by invisible hands from the frozen outskirts of the Oort cloud, or even from interstellar space. There is something humbling in these first glimpses, that humanity, small and fragile, can detect icy wanderers billions of kilometers away by measuring a thin trickle of light. That civilization has stretched its senses so far into the void. But with that vision comes fear. For each new trajectory traced upon a chart is a question: will it miss us or not? Thus begins the story, not with fire in the sky, but with the quiet vigilance of astronomers who notice the faintest whisper in the dark and realize it might be the prelude to something greater. When the name 3I Atlas appeared in the catalogues of the International Astronomical Union, it carried with it the echo of earlier astonishments. Before it, only 2 interstellar interlopers had ever been confirmed, the enigmatic Oumuamua and the Comet 21 Borisov. These had already shattered our illusion that the solar system was an island unto itself. Suddenly, here was a third, another traveler, another messenger from beyond the sun's dominion. Atlas itself was not a telescope of myth, but of vigilance. The asteroid terrestrial impact last alert system, spread across Hawaiian mountaintops, had been designed as a sentinel for Earth, a network of robotic eyes scanning the heavens for anything that might cross our orbit. It was here, within that flow of data, that 3I was noticed its path unmistakably hyperbolic, its origins not within the familiar icy halo of the Oort cloud, but further, from the great ocean between the stars. Its trajectory alone was a revelation. Unlike the elongated ellipses of long-period comets, 3I's orbit bore no sign of return. It was a visitor, not a resident, cutting across the solar system as a stone might skip across a pond, never to circle back. Its speed betrayed its nature, too fast for the sun's gravity to cage. Its chemistry hinted at kinship with other comets. Yet there was also strangeness, dust signatures, not quite aligned with expectations, volatile compounds sublimating in odd measure. If Oumuamua had stirred debate by looking more like a shard of rock or perhaps a fractured fragment than a comet, and if Borisov had resembled a more familiar icy nucleus, 3I Atlas seemed to sit uneasily between categories. It glowed with cometary activity, its coma blooming as it neared the sun, yet the details of its spectrum raised questions of diversity among interstellar bodies. Were these emissaries shaped in alien stellar nurseries, born of physics similar yet not identical to our own? But beyond the technical marvel of its detection lay a deeper tremor. If one interstellar object could pass us by chance, it might be rare. If two appeared within a short span, coincidence weakened. By the time a third was catalogued, the narrative shifted. The galaxy is rich with wanderers, and we are far less isolated than we once believed. The stars are not silent. They shed fragments, castaways, survivors of planetary birth and stellar death, and those fragments wander until they cross paths with worlds like ours. Thus, the rumor of 7 comets, arriving together in whispered speculation, found fertile ground in the presence of 3I Atlas. For if 3 interstellar bodies could be discovered in such quick succession, might there be more, not just isolated visitors, but a flotilla, a caravan of icy travelers threading into our skies? It is here that science and myth converge. The mere notion of multiple inbound wanderers touches a primal chord, echoing tales of omens and portents of heavenly armies crossing the night. And yet in the cold mathematics of orbital mechanics, the arrival of 3I Atlas was not omen but evidence. The galaxy sends us its debris. The question that remains, heavy and unresolved, is whether that debris is only curiosity or destiny. When the news first circulated among the quiet corridors of observatories, it was wrapped in the language of data tables and orbital elements. Yet, when those figures reached beyond the scientific journals into the world at large, they carried the gravity of prophecy. Astronomers announced unusual trajectories, comets with paths that did not conform to the serene regularities expected of long-period wanderers. Their motions, when plotted, appeared unsettlingly close to Earth's orbit, not yet threatening, not yet collisional, but close enough to awaken the unease of possibility. The word alarm in science is rarely spoken, but it was present, if only in undertone. Not panic, not melodrama, but the sober caution of professionals aware of the delicacy of their task. For to misjudge a trajectory by even fractions of a degree could transform harmless passage into catastrophe. This was the context in which whispers of 7 comets began to take shape. They were not yet confirmed as a collective, but the data seemed to show a clustering more inbound visitors than expected, more than probability alone should allow. Observatories across continents tuned their instruments. In Chile, the giant eyes of Cerro Paranal stared through crystalline skies. In space, the Hubble telescope sharpened its focus, while smaller robotic surveys like Pan-STARRS swept methodically, capturing streaks of motion against starfields. The reports began to circulate. Object faint but confirmed. Coma development noted. Hyperbolic elements possible. And always, the crucial column, minimum orbital intersection distance, the measure of how near each might come to Earth's path. The public, when it learned of these discoveries, felt no comfort in the probabilities. 1 in 10,000, 1 in a million, to scientists, these numbers meant safety, but to ordinary minds they meant chance. A chance, however slight, that our planet's serene course could be broken by a sudden stroke from the heavens, and when multiplied across multiple comets, the fear compounded. 7 slender chances did not feel like reassurance. They felt like inevitability waiting in disguise. But beneath the headlines and public unease, the scientific world remained measured. Astronomers did not see omens, they saw puzzles. Why these orbits? Why this timing? Were these comets fragments of a larger body, torn apart in the dark reaches of the solar system, now cascading inward as a family? Or was it pure coincidence? A cluster of unrelated wanderers merely aligned in our era of observation? The data did not yet say. Still, the alarm persisted in subtle ways. Observing schedules were adjusted. Telescope time was reassigned. Proposals were submitted to track the newcomers more closely. Satellites were instructed to widen their vigilance. This is what alarm looks like in science. Not the raising of voices, but the sharpening of attention, the tightening of focus, the quiet but urgent sense that something worthy of vigilance has entered the field of view. And thus, with scientists staring at plots of motion and the public staring at headlines, the rumor solidified into narrative. Comets were approaching, perhaps 7 of them, and their paths were unusual. The question of what they meant, threat, omen, or wonder, was left hanging in the air, unspoken but heavy. Long before observatories and satellites, comets were already inscribed into the imagination of humankind. To early civilizations, these luminous strangers arriving without warning were more than celestial events. They were symbols, omens, divine messages etched briefly across the night. No ordinary star blazed with a tail. No planet carried such a sudden glow. And so comets became the handwriting of gods and spirits, each appearance a warning or promise carried through fire and ice. In ancient China, imperial court astronomers worked in secrecy, knowing that their emperors treated comets as verdicts upon dynasties. To record the arrival of a tailed star was to speak of famine or war, of blessings or curses from the heavens. On bamboo strips and silk scrolls, they catalogued these apparitions with care, blending astronomy with astrology, mathematics with fate. In their chronicles, the sweep of a comet's tail could signal the collapse of kingdoms. In Europe, too, fear took shape under cometary light. Medieval chronicles described them as hairy stars, beacons of plague or war. When Halley's comet appeared in 1066, it was etched onto the Bayeux tapestry, forever bound to the conquest of England. In later centuries, philosophers and priests debated their meaning, torn between natural philosophy and divine intervention. To peasants and kings alike, the sudden blaze of a comet was enough to still conversation, to bend prayer, to remind humanity of its smallness beneath the vault of heaven. Not all cultures saw only terror. Among the Maya, comets were woven into cycles of time, linked to cosmic renewal and transformation. Polynesian navigators, gazing across Pacific horizons, learned to interpret celestial patterns not as dread, but as guides to their voyages. In every case, comets shaped the rhythms of culture, inspiring mythologies that carried through generations. Even with the dawn of modern astronomy, their aura of portent did not easily fade. In 1910, as Halley's comet returned, newspapers spread panic by warning of poisonous cyanogen gas in its tail. Citizens purchased anti-comet pills and comet umbrellas. The spectacle was no longer interpreted as divine judgment, but the fear remained shifted from gods to chemistry, from spirits to science. And now, as rumors spread of 7 comets threading their way inward, humanity's ancient reflex awakens once more. Despite centuries of progress, the sight of a glowing traveler still strikes the old chords: awe, dread, curiosity, and the trembling sense that we are being reminded of something essential, that our world is not sealed against the cosmos, but open, exposed, vulnerable to forces larger than any empire. Thus, before we calculate trajectories or pass spectra, we must acknowledge this older weight. To look at a comet is to inherit millennia of meaning. They are not just ice and dust. They are the embodiment of the tension between wonder and fear, hope and annihilation. They are reminders that the heavens, for all their silence, are not empty. And so, as telescopes confirm faint motions and rumors multiply, humanity finds itself in a familiar position, just as it did in the time of emperors and prophets watching the sky, and wondering what the next appearance of a comet will mean. To understand why the rumor of 7 comets unsettled so many, one must first understand the laws that guide their paths, the invisible architecture that allows them to sweep in from the darkness, loop around the sun, and vanish once more into the gulfs beyond. This is the domain of celestial mechanics, the precise yet poetic mathematics that governs the dance of worlds and wanderers. Every comet is a prisoner and a fugitive, bound by gravity yet yearning for escape. Newton was the first to write their language in equations. The curve of an orbit, the force of attraction, the relation between distance and time. His laws revealed that the great arcs drawn by comets were not whims of gods, but predictable consequences of mass and motion. A comet's journey is carved by the sun's pull, its trajectory a vast ellipse, or, in some cases, a parabola so stretched that return becomes a matter of millennia or never at all. Yet, while the laws are universal, the circumstances are fragile. A passing planet, a ripple of gravity from Jupiter or Saturn, can tilt a comet's path by millions of kilometers. Small changes in velocity, mere whispers of acceleration, alter futures entirely. What seems like certainty becomes, under closer scrutiny, a web of probabilities. It is here that the anxiety blooms. Even when guided by the most precise mathematics, the fate of a comet remains delicately uncertain. The comet's physical nature amplifies the complexity. As sunlight warms its icy nucleus, frozen gases burst into vapor, creating jets that push unpredictably against the body itself. These tiny thrusts, outgassing, as astronomers call them, are enough to skew an orbit ever so slightly, making predictions a living puzzle. To watch a comet is not only to track its geometry, but to witness a body in constant dialogue with the sun, reshaping its own destiny. When scientists trace the 7 rumored comets, they do so with these truths in mind. Each is not just a line upon a chart, but a fragile balance between gravity's embrace and the subtle rebellion of chemistry. Some orbits stretch inward from the Oort cloud, a vast sphere of frozen relics that envelops the solar system like a distant shell. Others, like 3I Atlas, arrive with velocities too high to have been born here at all. Each path tells a story of origin, a biography written in mathematics, a birth in a stellar nursery, a long exile in the dark, a sudden encounter with the warmth of our Sunday. It is a poetry of motion, but one edged with peril. For the same mechanics that guide comets harmlessly past Earth are also the mechanics that, on rare occasions, align them with catastrophe. The equations do not discriminate between beauty and destruction. They merely describe what will unfold. And so, humanity peers into this web of forces, trying to trace futures across decades and centuries. The rumors of 7 comets are examined against Newton's laws, Kepler's ellipses, Einstein's curvature of spacetime. The rules are known. The challenge lies in their application, in the fragile sensitivity of reality itself. Here, in the dance of ice and gravity, the mystery deepens not because the laws fail, but because they reveal how precarious our place is in a universe of endless wanderers. There is something profoundly unsettling about the notion of an interstellar puzzle, an object that does not belong, arriving from the deep between stars. For centuries, comets were thought to be local phenomena, children of the solar system, born in its frozen outskirts. Their eccentric orbits, however elongated, always tethered them to our sun's dominion. But that assumption shattered in 2017 when astronomers sighted a slender visitor racing inward with impossible speed. It was named Oumuamua, the first confirmed interstellar object, and with it came a revelation. The cosmos sends us not only comets from our own cloud of debris, but fragments from other stars entirely. Oumuamua bent every expectation. It was not merely fast, it was peculiar in shape, tumbling like a shard of fractured stone, with no glowing tail to mark it as a typical comet. Its acceleration betrayed something strange, a push beyond what gravity alone could provide. Some suggested outgassing too faint to be seen, while others whispered of more exotic explanations, solar sails, alien technology. None were confirmed, but the mystery lingered, a reminder that our models are fragile against the vastness of the unknown. 2 years later, another traveler appeared, 2I Borisov. Unlike Oumuamua, this visitor looked like a classic comet, complete with coma and tail. Its interstellar origin was clear from its trajectory, a hyperbolic orbit cutting through the solar system at nearly 60,000 miles per hour. With Borisov came reassurance. The galaxy indeed sends icy wanderers, and they resemble what we expect: comets with frozen gases, born of other suns, traveling through interstellar darkness for untold millennia. And then came 3I Atlas, the third interstellar object ever recorded. Unlike its predecessors, it bore both the familiarity of cometary behavior and the strangeness of an alien fingerprint. Its chemistry was not entirely Earth-like, its emissions suggesting volatile compounds sculpted in distant environments. Each interstellar object confirmed the same haunting truth: the galaxy is full of debris, fragments of planetary systems torn apart, cast adrift between the stars. And some of those fragments find their way here. This realization deepens the anxiety surrounding the 7 rumored comets. For if even interstellar wanderers cross our orbit in numbers too high to dismiss, then Earth is not a secluded island, but a coast battered by tides of galactic debris. The solar system is porous, open to the wider currents of the Milky Way. Gravity cannot shield us. Borders do not exist in space. The interstellar puzzle raises further questions. How many of these travelers pass undetected, too faint or too distant for our instruments to notice? How many threads of alien ice have brushed our skies without recognition? And might some have already struck Earth in ancient epochs, seeding oceans, sculpting craters, or carrying the raw ingredients of life itself? In 3I Atlas, astronomers glimpse not only a comet, but a messenger, a piece of evidence in a larger cosmic riddle. If fragments from other stars reach us so readily, what does that imply about the fragility of our world, about the interconnectedness of planetary systems across light years? The solar system, it seems, is not a fortress but a crossroads, and the comets are travelers whose stories began long before our own sun was born. Thus, the rumor of 7 inbound wanderers is sharpened by this context. For each comet might not be merely an icy relic of our outer shell, but a stranger from the interstellar dark. And if they are strangers, then their arrival is not just a scientific puzzle, it is a reminder that the universe is far less empty and far more connected than we have ever dared to believe. The word orbit suggests elegance, an endless curve, precise and predictable, looping through the void with mathematical serenity. But sometimes, orbits misbehave. They tilt, twist, or accelerate in ways that defy our expectations. This is where mystery thrives, in the small deviations that hint at hidden forces or unknown origins. When astronomers charted the paths of the 7 rumored comets, a pattern of unease emerged. Their inclinations were odd angles through the solar system's plane that did not align with the stately order of planets and asteroids. Some plunged steeply from above or below, as though hurled in from tilted dimensions of space. Others carried speeds that exceeded what local gravitational sculpting alone should produce. The familiar families of comets, short-period objects looping every few decades, or long-period wanderers returning after thousands of years, did not fully explain these anomalies. Consider Jupiter's immense role. The gas giant acts as both guardian and scatterer, pulling comets into deflection or ejecting them into exile. Yet, even Jupiter's influence seemed insufficient to explain some of these trajectories. A handful of orbits bore the signature of something more dramatic, as if the comets had been nudged not by a planet, but by the invisible tide of the galaxy itself, or perhaps by encounters with distant stellar neighbors. For scientists, this misbehavior was not simply irregular, it was provocative. The solar system's mechanics are not chaotic randomness, but an ordered chaos, shaped by calculable patterns. Deviations imply histories. Collisions in the Oort cloud, near misses with passing stars, or accelerations by processes not fully understood. In the case of Oumuamua, even subtle non-gravitational accelerations challenged existing models. If these 7 comets exhibited similar behavior, then they were more than wanderers, they were questions written in the language of motion. To the public, however, such talk amplified unease. Words like hyperbolic, unbound, unpredictable echoed ominously in headlines. The idea that comets might not obey predictable returns but instead slice through the solar system on one-way paths suggested intrusion rather than participation. They were not members of our cosmic family but visitors whose agendas were unreadable. For the astronomer, this is a puzzle to decode. Why do these orbits misalign? Are they fragments of a larger disrupted body, their shared anomalies evidence of a violent past? Or are they coincidental intruders, their strangeness only amplified by human imagination? The calculations continue, each orbit refined with new data, each irregularity pressed into models. Yet, beyond the equations lies the philosophical resonance, the idea that order is never absolute. Even in the heavens, where gravity's laws seem eternal, there are wanderers who refuse the script. And it is in their refusal, their disobedience to the expected, that we sense the deeper mystery. For if comets can slip through the cracks of predictability, then perhaps the universe itself is less fixed, less knowable than we once believed. The orbits misbehave, and in their rebellion, they carry both terror and wonder. Terror, because prediction is our shield against destruction. Wonder, because unpredictability is the signature of discovery. Probability is a cold word, and yet it carries the weight of fate. When scientists describe the chance of impact, 1 in a million, 1 in 10,000, they speak with the language of reassurance. But to the human mind, those numbers often ignite fear instead. For embedded within even the smallest probability lies the acknowledgement that it is not zero. And when the stakes are nothing less than the survival of civilization, a fraction of a fraction feels heavier than certainty itself. In the case of the 7 rumored comets, probability charts became the center of attention. Each orbit was plotted, its intersection with Earth's path calculated with care. The values that emerged seemed comforting on paper, the distances of closest approach measured in millions of kilometers, and yet small uncertainties remained. Orbital data is not perfect. It is born from faint points of light against infinite darkness. Each measurement carries error, each projection a margin. Those margins, when stretched across months or years of travel, widen into corridors of uncertainty where even Earth itself can slip. Scientists know this well. The Torino scale and Palermo scale exist precisely to rank such risks, to translate the mathematics of probability into assessments the public might understand. Most objects score at the lowest rungs, their likelihood of impact effectively negligible. And yet, in the early days of tracking, comets can appear far more dangerous until data refines their paths. For those days, before clarity emerges, humanity looks at the sky through the prism of possibility, and possibility is enough to unsettle. What is striking is the disproportionate fear. A person will drive a car each day with risks orders of magnitude higher than a comet strike. Yet the thought of a celestial collision grips the imagination with unparalleled force. The reason is scale. A comet impact is not an accident of flesh and steel, it is the rewriting of worlds. An object a few kilometers wide holds the energy to shatter climates, extinguish species, and plunge civilization into centuries of night. To calculate even a remote chance of such an outcome is to hold a mirror to our fragility. For astronomers, These probabilities are puzzles to narrow, not verdicts to pronounce. They refine observations, update orbital elements, and slowly collapse uncertainty into certainty. The language they use impact probability decreasing. Risk corridor shifting outward reflects a cautious optimism. Yet, for the public, the presence of multiple inbound comets creates a sense of cumulative dread. 7 whispers of chance are harder to ignore than one. Even if each carries a probability infinitesimal, together they paint a psychological image of inevitability, of dice rolled too often. And here lies the paradox of science communication. Probability is both shield and burden. It is meant to reassure, yet it reminds us of vulnerability. It quantifies risk, yet it cannot erase possibility. And in that slender space between the possible and the impossible, the imagination builds its own catastrophes. Thus, the shock of probability is not only in the numbers themselves, but in the recognition that we live suspended between certainty and chance. Earth sails through the cosmos, not upon a fixed destiny, but through a corridor of probabilities, sometimes so vast as to seem secure, sometimes narrow enough that a single icy traveler could redefine everything we know. Above the deserts, mountains, and oceans of Earth, a quiet fleet of watchers keeps vigil. Some rest upon volcanic summits, their domes opening each night like metallic flowers to the stars. Others circle the planet itself, satellites suspended in silence, their cameras unblinking. Together, they are humanity's eyes in the sky, the guardians that trace the faint arcs of comets, asteroids, and interstellar wanderers. When the rumors of 7 comets began to ripple outward, these eyes turned sharply toward the task. Wide-field surveys such as Pan-STARRS, Neowise, and Atlas combed the heavens for returning streaks, logging positions night after night. With each observation, the margin of uncertainty narrowed as orbital elements were recalculated in chains of equations stretching across continents. From mountain observatories in Hawaii and Chile to spaceborne telescopes adrift above Earth's atmosphere, the pursuit intensified. These instruments do not see comets as humans do. To the naked eye, a comet is a glowing veil, its tail a ribbon across the night. To the machine, it is raw data, faint magnitudes of light, spectra split into their chemical colors, coordinates plotted with near mathematical indifference. Yet within those data points lies a drama, the moment when trajectories are revealed not as harmless diversions, but as threads brushing the fabric of Earth's orbit. Telescopes catch more than position. They record coma development, the birth of a comet's shroud as sunlight warms its frozen skin. They trace the expansion of tails, the glow of ionized gases, the subtle shifts in brightness that betray jets of vapor bursting into space. Satellites deepen the view. Neowise, orbiting high above, captures the infrared signatures invisible from Earth, allowing astronomers to measure the size of nuclei and the release of volatile compounds. Each detail adds depth to the narrative. The comets are not static, but alive, reshaping themselves as they fall sunward. But there is also humility in these efforts. Even with our network of eyes, the cosmos remains vast beyond reckoning. For every object catalogued, countless others move unseen, their signals too faint to pierce the noise of stars. The 7 comets in question may simply be the visible tip of an unseen multitude. And yet, the act of searching, of refining, of logging each glimmer is humanity's defiance against the abyss. Every night, as the data streams in, teams of astronomers refine their models, sending updates across the globe. Ephemerides shift, distances sharpen, and the probabilities that once lingered like clouds begin to clear. Some comets move safely outward, their danger dissipating into the background hum of the universe. Others, however, remain unresolved, their paths still uncertain, their their futures hidden within margins of error too wide to ignore. This is the delicate balance of modern vigilance, the interplay of certainty and doubt, of machinery and imagination. The telescopes and satellites see further than ever before, yet they cannot eliminate the haunting possibility of surprise. And so, even as the 7 comets are mapped with increasing clarity, a deeper unease persists that there may always be another, unseen, waiting to appear on the next frame, the next night, the next whisper from the sky. Patterns are the language of nature, and the human mind is forever drawn to them. We search the sky not only for objects, but for meaning hidden in their arrangements. When whispers of 7 inbound comets grew louder, astronomers began to ask, are these wanderers isolated coincidences, or do they belong to a larger story written across the solar system? The first suggestion was family. Comets are fragile, brittle bodies, icy conglomerates laced with dust, prone to fracture under the stress of the sun's heat or the pull of gravity. A single parent body, disrupted in the depths of the Oort cloud or torn apart during an earlier passage, can splinter into fragments that drift inward along parallel tracks. To the eye, these fragments may seem separate, but in the equations of celestial mechanics, they reveal kinship. This has been observed before. Shoemaker, Levy 9, the comet that broke into 21 pieces before colliding with Jupiter in 1994, was one such family. Its fragments, a line of pearls across the heavens. Could the 7 rumored comets be a distant echo of such an event? Another possibility stirred debate: resonance. The solar system is not static, but resonant, its planets weaving gravitational patterns that shepherd comets into clusters. Jupiter, with its immense mass, is the primary sculptor, capturing objects into families of similar orbits or expelling them altogether. If several comets appear inbound at once, it may be Jupiter's doing a cosmic hand-guiding icy exiles into similar corridors. Yet, some astronomers wondered if coincidence itself should not be underestimated. The sky is vast, and surveys now search more deeply and frequently than ever before. What appears as clustering may be the artifact of increased vigilance, a sudden harvest after centuries of blindness. But even this does not erase the strangeness. For each comet is not merely a streak of light, but a relic of cosmic history, and to see several approaching in a short span forces the question, why now? As models were run and data compared, certain alignments stood out. Orbital inclinations seemed to echo one another. Perihelion distances grouped more tightly than chance might suggest. It was as though the 7 were not entirely strangers, but threads from a single loom, perhaps woven together long ago in the cold margins of the solar system, or, more provocatively, beyond it. The patterns fascinated, but they also unsettled. For if these comets were kin, then their story began with violence, the shattering of a larger body, perhaps a rogue interstellar fragment torn by tidal forces as it skimmed past the Sunday. Each new trajectory traced was a clue in this cosmic crime scene, each similarity a hint of a shared origin. To the poets of science, it seemed as though the universe was sending not one message, but several, linked together. 7 icy signatures scrawled across the void, waiting for human minds to decipher their relation. To the cautious, it was merely anomaly, to be explained with further data. To the dreamers, it was narrative, a cosmic pattern revealing itself in the most ancient of messengers. And so, the comets did not merely exist as individuals, they became part of a wider tapestry, their collective behavior suggesting that beneath the randomness of the void, there might yet be design. Gravity is supposed to be the universal scriptwriter, the force that dictates the arcs of worlds, moons, asteroids, and comets. Its rules are clear. What comes in must slow, curve, and obey the embrace of mass. And yet, on rare occasions, the universe writes in a different ink. Some comets seem to slip from gravity's grasp, accelerating in ways the equations cannot account for. It is here, in the margins where orbits diverge from predictions, that mystery thickens. Oumuamua was the first to bring this puzzle into sharp relief. As it tumbled away from the Sun, its trajectory shifted in ways too large for mere error. It was moving faster than gravity alone could explain. Astronomers proposed outgassing, jets of vapor bursting from its surface, like miniature thrusters. But no coma was visible, no tail betrayed such activity. It accelerated in silence, as though propelled by a hidden hand. Comets within our own solar system have shown similar, if less dramatic, behavior. Outgassing is real and measurable sublimation of frozen gases as sunlight warms the nucleus. These jets, uneven and unpredictable, act as subtle rockets, nudging the body off course. For most comets, this is a complication, a detail folded into orbital models. But in some cases, the effect is profound, pushing the comet's path in ways that echo Oumuamua's enigma. When astronomers turned their attention to the 7 rumored comets, they noticed whispers of similar anomalies. Brightness variations suggested uneven venting of gases. Tail structures twisted in ways that implied complex forces at play. In their orbits, tiny discrepancies between prediction and observation began to accumulate, growing larger with each pass. The question arose, were these simply extreme cases of outgassing, or signs of something more? Speculation ranged wide. Some argued that the composition of these comets might be exotic, with volatiles unfamiliar to us, substances that erupt more violently under the sun's heat. Others wondered whether interstellar origins might imbue them with different structures, altogether porous matrices of ice and dust that behave unpredictably under stellar radiation. And a few, reaching further still, suggested unknown forces, subtle interactions with the solar wind, electromagnetic phenomena not yet measured, or even dark energy whispering its influence in the microcosm of icy rocks. The philosophical unease deepened here. If gravity is not the sole ruler of motion, then our predictive shield weakens. The comfort of celestial mechanics so orderly, so precise phrase at the edges. A comet that accelerates beyond expectation is a comet whose future cannot be traced with certainty. It is not merely a traveler, it is a wild card. For Earth, this unpredictability sharpens the danger. A shift of a few thousand kilometers may spell the difference between a harmless passage and catastrophe. If the 7 comets are indeed accelerating beyond gravity, then humanity's ability to forecast their paths becomes fragile, provisional. The equations of Newton and Einstein remain true, but they must share the stage with processes far messier, processes that turn orbits into riddles. And so, amid the telescopes and the charts, a deeper question lingers: what drives these wanderers? And why do some move as though animated by an unseen will? Science offers hypotheses, yet none fully still the unease. The universe is revealing not chaos, but complexity, a reminder that even the most ancient forces can surprise us. When the first strange intruder was seen streaking through the solar system in 2017, it bore a name from a culture that knew the sea of stars well: Oumuamua. A messenger from afar arriving first. It was slender, elongated, and spinning as though fractured from some greater body. It had no glowing tail, no visible coma, yet it accelerated in ways a comet should. It was neither one thing nor the other, neither asteroid nor comet, but a riddle cast into the void. The debates that followed revealed more than science, they revealed our hunger for meaning. Some argued Oumuamua was a shard of frozen hydrogen, its surface boiling invisibly under solar heat. Others proposed nitrogen ice, chipped from the surface of an alien Pluto. A few dared to ask if it was something engineered, a derelict probe, a fragment of alien technology drifting untended between stars. Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb's bold suggestion of artificiality stirred headlines worldwide, not because it was likely, but because it resonated with a deeper fear that we are not alone and that the universe occasionally sends us not natural relics, but artifacts. Then came 2I Borisov in 2019. Unlike Oumuamua, this second interstellar visitor looked familiar, glowing with a coma and trailing a tail of dust. Its chemistry revealed alien proportions, an excess of carbon monoxide that spoke of birth in colder regions than our solar system had ever known. If Oumuamua was an enigma, Borisov was reassurance, proof that the galaxy is littered with icy debris, planets and comets shattered and flung outward to wander the Milky Way for eternity. By the time 3I Atlas was catalogued, the idea of interstellar comets had ceased to be anomaly and become pattern. We no longer spoke of rarity but of frequency. Perhaps billions of such bodies roam the galaxy, unseen until they drift close enough for our instruments to detect. And now, when rumors gather of 7 comets moving inward, the echoes of Oumuamua color the story. For if a single object could unsettle our science so deeply, what then of 7? Could one of them conceal the same silent acceleration, the same refusal to obey gravity's script? Could one be another shard of alien geology, or something stranger still? Astronomers remain cautious. They do not leap to extraterrestrial explanations, preferring the discipline of chemistry and physics. Yet, the shadow of Oumuamua lingers, not as proof, but as possibility. It stands as a reminder that not all wanderers behave as expected, and that the universe may still spring surprises profound enough to shake the foundations of our understanding. The comets, then, are not isolated. They exist in the narrative arc begun by Oumuamua, Borisov, and Atlas, a growing chorus of interstellar visitors. Each one sharpens the question: are we witnessing the random scattering of galactic debris, or the edges of a larger pattern, a flow of messengers from the deep? Thus, every observation of the 7 rumored comets is haunted by the memory of that first interstellar stranger tumbling silently through the dark. Oumuamua left behind no answers, only a trail of speculation. And perhaps these 7 too will leave us with mysteries instead of closure, reminders that the universe does not yield its secrets easily. One might imagine that the passage of time and the gathering of data would bring clarity, that each night of observation, each refinement of orbital elements would sharpen the outlines of certainty. Yet, with these 7 comets, the opposite seemed true. The more astronomers observed, the more questions multiplied. What began as faint streaks on a detector evolved into puzzles layered with complexity, a mystery expanding instead of narrowing. At first, the comets were thought to be typical long-period wanderers, relics of the Oort cloud returning from their distant exile. But as their paths were refined, the patterns refused to settle into predictability. Their inclinations and velocities hinted at unusual origins. Some bore the signature of being unbound to the sun entirely, like 3I Atlas suggesting interstellar descent. Others behaved as if perturbed, tugged by invisible forces. Their brightness fluctuated erratically, comas blooming then fading as though driven by hidden cycles within their icy hearts. Instruments revealed more strangeness still. Spectra showed volatile compounds in proportions rarely seen, excesses of carbon monoxide here, depletion of water ice there. One comet exhibited dust grains, larger than expected, scattering light in unnatural ways. Another showed jets of vapor venting from a nucleus too small to sustain such activity. Unless it was unusually porous or hollowed, each anomaly by itself could be explained. Together, they painted a picture of bodies that defied categorization. The deeper the gaze, the darker the questions. Were these 7 comets fragments of a single catastrophic event, their diversity a sign of internal layers exposed by a long-ago shattering? Or were they emissaries from multiple origins, coincidentally drawn inward at the same epoch? If coincidence, what mechanism had synchronized their arrival? The mystery escalated further when subtle accelerations were confirmed. Tiny deviations from predicted orbits, small yet undeniable, suggested propulsion beyond gravity. Outgassing explained some, but not all. In a few cases, the forces required seemed disproportionate to visible activity. It was as though something invisible pressed against them, bending their paths in silence. To scientists, such anomalies are invitations, data points that demand new models, new hypotheses. But to humanity at large, they are omens of uncertainty. The narrative that once seemed straightforward, 7 icy relics inbound, was replaced with something more haunting, 7 anomalies, each carrying strangeness enough to unsettle the boundaries of science. Instead of reassurance, the investigations deepened the unease. Telescopes gave us sharper visions, but the clarity only revealed how little we understood. The mystery was no longer whether these comets would collide with Earth, but what they truly were. Visitors from the Oort cloud, emissaries from interstellar gulfs, fragments of forgotten catastrophes, or harbingers of forces we have yet to name? In this expansion of uncertainty, awe and fear intertwined, for each comet was no longer a mere icy rock. It was a question flung across the void, its meaning waiting to be read. And 7 questions arriving at once is not coincidence to the human heart. It is narrative, it is omen. It is the feeling that the universe has chosen this moment to remind us of its deeper mysteries. What makes the presence of comets most haunting is not their beauty, but their potential to wound. In their frozen silence, they carry both memory and menace. For comets have shaped the Earth before, not only with life's raw materials, but with catastrophe. When astronomers speak of 7 icy wanderers moving inward, the imagination does not leap to water and chemistry. It leaps to fire. The scars of such encounters are etched across our planet. The Chicxulub crater in Mexico bears silent testimony to the day, 66 million years ago, when an object roughly 10 kilometers wide struck the Earth. Whether asteroid or comet, its arrival changed everything. A fireball hotter than 1,000 suns ignited the sky. Tsunamis tore across oceans, shockwaves shattered forests, and a veil of dust cloaked the atmosphere. In the darkness that followed, the age of dinosaurs ended. That was not the only blow. The Tunguska event of 1908 flattened 2,000 square kilometers of Siberian forest, likely the detonation of a cometary fragment high in the atmosphere. No crater remained, only charred trees lying like straws in one direction, mute witnesses of cosmic power. Smaller impacts have scarred deserts, lakes, and ice sheets throughout history. The Earth remembers, even if we choose to forget. What would 7 inbound comets mean in such a context? Each one, even a few hundred meters across, holds kinetic energy measured in millions of megatons, enough to vaporize a city, collapse economies, or alter climates. The largest could bring oceans to boil, ignite global wildfires, and plunge the biosphere into extinction-level darkness. And unlike asteroids, comets arrive with less warning. Their long, looping orbits carry them into visibility only months or years before approach, giving humanity little time to prepare. This dual nature, harbingers of life, agents of destruction, makes comets terrifying paradoxes. The same icy chemistry that may once have seeded Earth with water and organic molecules could, in another epoch, erase civilizations in an afternoon. They are both womb and scythe, birth and annihilation contained within fragile nuclei of dust and frozen gas. The thought of 7 such bodies moving inward awakens the archetypal dread of the heavens. It recalls ancient omens and biblical visions of fire raining from the sky. Yet, here it is not prophecy but probability, not myth but mechanics, and that may be worse. For myth allows escape into metaphor, while mechanics confronts us with inevitability, energy, mass, velocity, the unpoetic numbers of destruction. Astronomers labor to calm such fears, reminding us that probabilities are small, distances vast, impacts rare. Yet beneath their reassurances lies the unspoken truth. Comets have struck before, and they will strike again. To know this is not alarmism but memory, written in craters and extinctions. The question is not if, but when. Thus, the rumor of 7 comets is not simply a story of distant wanderers. It is the resurfacing of an ancient terror, sharpened by modern knowledge. A reminder that beneath the serene stars, the universe keeps weapons of unimaginable scale, and that Earth is not immune to their silent fall. Albert Einstein once described gravity not as a force but as the curvature of space and time themselves, a fabric stretched and bent by mass and energy. In his vision, planets do not orbit the Sun because they are pulled by an invisible tether. They orbit because the Sun has curved the stage beneath them, and their paths follow the lines of that distortion. It is a revelation that turned celestial mechanics into geometry, weaving the orbits of comets, asteroids, and worlds into the tapestry of space-time itself. When astronomers trace the movements of the 7 rumored comets, they are not merely drawing ellipses upon paper. They are mapping the invisible wells and ridges sculpted by the Sun, the planets, and even the subtle tug of distant stars. Einstein's equations, those dense, elegant symbols of general relativity, describe how every mass bends space-time, and how that bending defines the path of wanderers. A comet plunging toward the Sun is not falling in the old Newtonian sense. It is sliding down the curved slope of a valley in the geometry of reality. The implications are profound. A passing star, thousands of years ago, could have nudged an object in the Oort cloud just enough to send it rolling inward. Jupiter's enormous gravity, curving space-time around itself, can slingshot a comet onto a new trajectory, perhaps binding it into a long orbit or flinging it outward forever. Even Earth, though small by cosmic standards, warps space-time enough that an approaching comet feels its influence. In this way, the solar system is a landscape of invisible hills and valleys, and comets are travelers drawn along its contours. But relativity also reminds us of fragility. Time itself bends under the weight of motion and mass. To watch a comet glide inward is to watch not only a body in space, but a clock in time. Its seconds stretched by velocity, its path a compromise between geometry and destiny. These 7 comets, if real and inbound, are not only visitors in our skies, they are messengers carrying the weight of Einstein's insight that the universe is a fabric and we are caught within its folds. For some scientists, the strangeness of cometary orbits, their accelerations, their unpredictable deviations, invites speculation about deeper interactions with relativity itself. Could subtle relativistic effects, usually negligible, play a role when comets skim too close to the Sun? Could their paths, bent not only by gravity but by the very flow of time, defy predictions in ways we have not yet measured? Even if not, the philosophical echo remains. Relativity shows us that the universe is not rigid clockwork, but supple fabric, capable of bending, warping, even tearing under extremes. Comets, then, are not only icy relics, but demonstrations, proof that the same equations that describe black holes and galaxies also trace their ghostly arcs. As the 7 comets continue inward, real or rumored, they remind us of Einstein's greatest gift, the recognition that motion is not separate from existence, and that every path through space is also a path through time. To follow them is to glimpse the geometry of the universe itself, written in the glowing tales of ancient ice. Beyond the reach of planets, beyond the shell of the Oort cloud, there exists a force even stranger than gravity, a force that does not pull or push, but stretches the very fabric of the cosmos outward. Scientists call it dark energy, and it is perhaps the most profound mystery in physics today. If gravity is the sculptor of comets' orbits, dark energy is the silent wind that expands the stage beneath them. It governs not the motions of individuals, but the fate of the universe itself. Its discovery came quietly at the end of the 20th century, when astronomers studying distant supernovae realized that the universe was not merely expanding, it was accelerating. Galaxies were rushing away from each other faster and faster, as though repelled by an invisible hand. No known force could account for this. No known particle could explain it. And so the name was given, dark energy, a placeholder for ignorance, an admission that something unseen composes nearly 70% of all reality. How might such a cosmic presence touch the paths of 7 rumored comets? Directly, perhaps very little. Dark energy's influence is spread thin, detectable only across vast intergalactic scales. Yet its existence challenges our assumption that gravity alone governs motion. It suggests that the universe is not a closed system of predictable mechanics, but a dynamic sea, shaped by forces we do not yet understand. Some theorists have speculated, if dark energy is not constant, if it fluctuates across space or time, then its fingerprints might be subtle even within our solar system. Perhaps the odd accelerations of certain comets, the deviations too large for outgassing yet too small for gravity to explain, are echoes of this unseen tide. Perhaps comets, as wanderers on the margins of gravity's reach, are the first to betray its presence in ways planets cannot. Even if dark energy does not bend their orbits, it bends our interpretation. It reminds us that the universe is not governed by a single narrative of attraction and inertia, but by a deeper story whose chapters we have only begun to glimpse. For every cometary anomaly, dark energy hovers like a shadow possibility, an influence that defies observation, a whisper that something more is at work than the laws we claim to know. Philosophically, the connection is profound. Comets are ancient relics, frozen since the dawn of the solar system, and yet their trajectories may carry the imprint of the universe's most modern mystery. They are time capsules not only of our origin, but of cosmic forces still veiled from understanding. To watch them glide inward is to watch the tension between known and unknown, between the clarity of Newton and Einstein, and the uncertainty of dark energy's silent expansion. Thus, as astronomers plot the orbits of the 7 inbound comets, the question lingers, are these deviations merely the quirks of ice and gas, or are they hints that the universe itself is stranger still? If dark energy stretches galaxies, perhaps it also leaves its fingerprints upon the smallest wanderers. And if so, then every comet is not only a messenger of history, but of destiny, the destiny of a cosmos still being written by forces beyond our imagination. Physicists often speak of the vacuum as if it were empty, a void bereft of substance. Yet quantum theory insists otherwise. The vacuum is alive with restless energy, a foam of particles flickering in and out of existence. It is not nothing, but a seething sea of potential, a stage where reality itself quivers. And in this trembling, some suspect, lies a danger far greater than any comet strike. The possibility that the vacuum could one day shift into a lower state of energy, a false vacuum decay, rewriting the very laws of physics. What does such an abstraction have to do with comets? Perhaps nothing directly, and yet the connection is more than metaphor. For comets glide through this vacuum, just as planets and galaxies do. Their trajectories are shaped not only by gravity and sunlight, but by the unseen stage upon which all matter exists. If that stage is unstable, if the very fabric of space-time trembles beneath them, then even their arcs become part of a deeper cosmic uncertainty. The idea of vacuum decay was born in equations, mathematical solutions to quantum field theory that suggested our universe might not be in its lowest possible state. Instead, we may live inside a metastable bubble, perched precariously above a truer ground. Should a fluctuation or high-energy event trigger a collapse, a new bubble of lower-energy vacuum would expand outward at the speed of light, obliterating all structure, rewriting all constants. Atoms, chemistry, stars, everything would vanish into unfamiliar rules. Comets, those fragile messengers, become symbolic in this context. They are relics of primordial formation, survivors from the dawn of the solar system, yet they sail upon a sea whose stability we take for granted. Their paths may seem eternal, looping back after millennia, but eternity itself depends upon the vacuum holding steady. If the quantum tremble were ever to tip, their orbits, our planets, even time itself would dissolve in an instant. Some physicists argue that the subtle anomalies in comet motion, those unexplained accelerations, those deviations from perfect gravity, could be the faintest hints of deeper physics. Could interactions with quantum fields, imperceptible in most contexts, leave traces in the paths of these icy wanderers? Perhaps unlikely, yet the speculation persists. For comets, by their very nature, travel at the boundary between certainty and chaos. They are delicate enough to be perturbed by whispers of energy invisible to us. Even if the vacuum does not betray itself through their motion, the thought alone changes how we see them. Each comet becomes a symbol of fragility, a reminder that not only are their orbits uncertain, but the very reality through which they glide may be provisional. They are frozen fossils, yes, but also metaphors for our own condition, adrift in a universe whose foundations may not be permanent. Thus, as astronomers trace the rumoured 7 comets inward, physics whispers a parallel dread. Their danger may not lie only in impact, but in what they remind us, that beneath every orbit, beneath every star, the ground of existence itself trembles with possibility. And in that trembling lies the most profound uncertainty of all. If dark energy hints at invisible tides, and the quantum vacuum trembles with instability, then another speculation reaches further still, that our universe may not be singular, that what we see, our galaxies, our stars, our comets, is but one bubble among countless others, each with its own laws, each drifting in a vast multiverse beyond imagination. For centuries, humanity looked at comets as omens from gods. Now, some physicists wonder if they might be omens from elsewhere, messengers not only from other solar systems, but perhaps from other realities. The idea may seem extravagant, but it grows from serious attempts to explain why the universe is the way it is. The equations of inflationary cosmology, the chaotic froth of quantum fields, the landscape of string theory, all suggest that many universes may coexist, each with different constants, different fates. How might such a concept touch the story of 7 comets? Consider this: if universes brush against one another, if bubbles collide or overlap, the seams might leave signatures, currents of energy, disruptions of trajectories, fragments of matter ejected from one cosmos into another. To the skeptic, this is pure speculation, untethered to observation. Yet to the dreamer, comets themselves become metaphors of drift between worlds. They are wanderers by nature, unbound, unclaimed, existing in liminal space. Their very presence reminds us that borders in the cosmos are porous. Even without literal multiverse crossings, the idea alters our perspective. For if there are countless universes, then the 7 rumored comets are not merely anomalies within our system, they are ordinary echoes of an infinite whole. In one universe, they miss Earth entirely. In another, one strikes, igniting a chain of catastrophe. In yet another, they never existed at all. Probability ceases to be a shield and becomes a branching of realities, each path unfolding somewhere, even if not here. Some philosophers of science argue that the multiverse, if true, robs events of meaning. If everything possible happens somewhere, then nothing is special. Yet others suggest the opposite, that meaning deepens because our fragile world, our narrow survival amid comets and cosmic hazards, becomes a singular miracle among infinite variations. We are the reality in which life has endured so far. And so, the 7 comets, viewed through this lens, become cosmic riddles of belonging. Are they ours, products of our sun's ancient debris field, or are they travelers from beyond? Are they emissaries from sister universes, brushing against ours for an instant before vanishing into their own domains? Science cannot say. Theories swirl, equations stretch, but the comets themselves remain silent. Yet, silence, too, is eloquent. The multiverse, if it exists, will not announce itself with banners of proof. It may whisper through subtle clues, anomalies at the edges of physics, deviations in the expected. Perhaps the comets are not such whispers, but perhaps they are reminders that what we call the universe may be far less than all that is, and that every wandering fragment of ice may carry stories not only from distant stars, but from realities we can barely imagine. Light is the oldest messenger. Before telescopes, before mathematics, before names like Newton or Einstein, humanity relied on nothing more than the eye to witness the heavens. Every comet ever feared, worshipped, or celebrated was first known as light against darkness, a sudden smear across the stars. And yet light, fragile as it is, remains our greatest tool. With it, we decipher distances, compositions, motions, entire histories encoded in photons that have traveled unthinkable paths. Now, in the era of modern astronomy, our vision has expanded into realms invisible to the human eye. We see not only the narrow band of visible light, but the hidden languages of the cosmos: infrared, ultraviolet, radio, X-rays. Each wavelength is a key to unlock a different layer of reality. And it is through these new eyes that the mystery of the 7 comets deepens. The James Webb Space Telescope, suspended in its cold vigil a million miles from Earth, peers at comets in infrared. It reveals heat signatures too faint for ground-based observatories, exposing the hidden chemistry of frozen nuclei. With Webb, scientists can measure the outgassing of carbon dioxide, methane, and other volatile compounds, substances that whisper of their origins. Some of the rumored comets betray ratios unlike those of our solar system, hinting at alien birthplaces, perhaps even interstellar kinship. Meanwhile, ground-based instruments like the Very Large Telescope in Chile dissect comet light into spectra. Each absorption line tells a story: dust grains enriched in carbon, unexpected traces of exotic ices, silicates forged in stellar furnaces beyond the Sunday. The faint glow of sodium tails stretches for millions of kilometers, invisible to the eye, but etched in the data. Every photon, captured after journeying across space, becomes a testimony of what these wanderers carry. Even ancient light lends its hand. Astronomers scour old photographic plates, searching for faint streaks unnoticed decades ago. By comparing past records with present motion, they refine orbits, peeling back the comet's histories. In some cases, the data reveals surprising consistency: comets, seen long before but forgotten, now recognized as part of the unfolding story. And so, with new eyes and old light, the narrative expands. These comets are not only present events but time travelers, their chemistry encoding the conditions of star-forming regions billions of years old. Some may have preserved compounds from the birth of our Sunday. Others may carry signatures foreign to our system, fragments of alien chemistry drifting into our night. It is humbling to realize that photons emitted or reflected by these wanderers arrive here, to us, as whispers across eternity. They fall into telescopes, into detectors, into the calculations of astronomers, and into the human imagination. In their glow, we glimpse not only the physical truth of ice and dust, but also the philosophical truth that light itself is a bridge across time, and that through it we commune with the most ancient messengers of the cosmos. Thus, the 7 comets are not silent. They speak in the language of light, and humanity, with its new instruments, has finally learned enough to listen. In the hush of orbit above Earth, machines never sleep. Satellites cold, tireless, and precise circle the planet, their instruments trained outward into the abyss. They are not poets, but guardians, sentinels tasked with recording the faint whispers of comets as they draw closer to the Sunday. Where ground-based telescopes struggle against weather and atmosphere, satellites trace every photon unfiltered, every spectral clue unblurred. They are humanity's watchmen, keeping silent vigil against the dark. Among them, Neowise has become a familiar name. Originally a space telescope for infrared surveys, it was repurposed to track near-Earth objects. From its vantage above the atmosphere, Neowise has traced cometary nuclei invisible to ground-based observatories, measuring their heat signatures and detecting gases released in fragile jets. Its sensors record not only brightness, but the delicate variations that reveal rotation, composition, and surface activity. For comets among the 7, these measurements are the difference between speculation and certainty. But Neowise is not alone. The Gaia satellite, though built to chart stars, refines cometary orbits with exquisite precision, its astrometric data helping astronomers predict paths with margins tighter than ever before. Other satellites, like SOHO and Stereo, watch the Sun, yet in their field of vision, they routinely catch comets plunging inward, some vanishing in fire as they graze too near the solar furnace. These unexpected detections remind us that our sentinels often find more than they were designed to see. Each orbiting observer adds another thread to the tapestry of vigilance. Collectively, they track brightness curves, plot dust tails, and measure non-gravitational accelerations. The comets are not just icy relics, they are dynamic laboratories, and satellites record their every pulse and flicker. In some, scientists see the telltale glow of water vapor. In others, faint emissions of carbon dioxide and ammonia, volatiles that whisper of their ancient birthplaces. Yet, for all their precision, these cosmic watchmen also reveal our fragility. Satellites extend human sight, but only across narrow corridors. They can monitor, refine, and alert, but they cannot shield. They are scribes, not warriors. Their role is to bear witness and provide knowledge, a knowledge that may grant humanity time, if ever a true collision threatens. There is a quiet poetry in the thought of these machines circling above, endlessly watching. They are like monks of the sky, reciting prayers of data into the silence of space. Each comet they track is another verse, another chapter in the endless book of cosmic motion, and in their vigilance lies the paradox of our age. We have never seen further, never measured more precisely, and yet we remain utterly exposed. For the 7 rumored comets, satellites provide the closest thing to certainty. They refine what was once rumor into evidence, rumor into numbers. But even then, their data cannot dispel the unease completely. Numbers may assure, but imagination lingers. The comets are written in the satellite's logs, as positions and magnitudes, but in the human heart, they remain harbingers, their meaning larger than data alone. To watch from afar is one thing, to reach out, to meet a comet in its own domain is another entirely. Spacecraft missions have transformed these icy wanderers from distant mysteries into tangible worlds, worlds that breathe, fracture, and evolve as they draw near the Sunday. And in the unfolding story of the 7 rumored comets, humanity looks to these missions for precedent, for hope that we may one day intercept, analyze, and perhaps even defend against such travelers. The Rosetta mission remains the most poetic of these encounters. Launched by the European Space Agency, it journeyed for a decade through space to meet comet 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko. There, Rosetta released its tiny lander, Philae, which descended onto the comet's surface like a fragile insect alighting upon ice. Though Philae bounced and fell into shadow, Rosetta's instruments revealed wonders: jets of vapor bursting like geysers, organic molecules coating dust grains, and a surface sculpted by eons of sublimation. The comet was not inert, it was alive in motion, shedding its skin into the void. NASA's Deep Impact mission carried a more dramatic approach. In 2005, it deliberately hurled a copper impactor into Comet Tempel 1, excavating a crater and casting a plume of material into space. Instruments analyzed the ejected dust, exposing the interior composition a glimpse into the primordial building blocks of the solar system. The result was startling. Beneath the crust lay a mixture of fine dust, ice, and complex molecules, fragile and ancient. Other missions followed Stardust, which captured particles from Comet Wild 2 and returned them to Earth, Giotto, which braved the fiery spray of Halley's Comet. Each encounter added detail, turning comets from mythic omens into laboratories of chemistry, time capsules from the dawn of planets. These missions, though past, echo into the present. If humanity wishes to truly know the 7 inbound comets, to measure their threat or unlock their secrets, similar ventures will be needed. Already proposals exist for Comet Interceptor, a European mission designed not for a predetermined target, but for whatever new visitor reveals itself. It will lie in wait at a gravitational waypoint, ready to launch at short notice toward the next unknown. Such readiness speaks to a deeper transformation. Comets are no longer just subjects of curiosity, they are objects of vigilance. Missions are not only about science, but survival, about testing whether we can nudge, redirect, or even destroy a dangerous body should one ever align with Earth's path. Planetary defense, once fiction, now merges with exploration. For the 7 rumored comets, the prospect of interception remains remote, bound by time and distance, yet their very existence underscores the urgency. The cosmos does not schedule its visits, it sends wanderers on its own terms. Humanity must be prepared not only to watch but to act, to send emissaries outward as both scientists and guardians. Thus, the story of spacecraft is not only one of discovery, but of preparation. Each mission past is rehearsal for futures yet unwritten. And as 7 wanderers glide inward, we are reminded that the next mission may not be for curiosity alone, but for the defense of the only world we call home. Certainty does not arrive suddenly. It emerges slowly, like dawn across a horizon, first a faint light, then the shaping of shadows, and finally the clarity of form. In the study of comets, especially those 7 whose rumored paths stir unease, certainty is the most precious commodity and also the most elusive. Astronomers know that each initial orbit is only a sketch, drawn from too few data points. The first nights of observation provide hints of motion, but the arc is incomplete. With every additional sighting, the orbit tightens, margins of error shrink, and probabilities collapse into firmer truths. What once appeared to brush dangerously near Earth often shifts safely outward, the spectre of collision fading like mist. Yet the process is painstaking. Observations must be cross-checked across observatories, nights compared, biases eliminated. It is a slow, almost monastic discipline. Teams of scientists spend months refining orbital solutions, running simulations across thousands of scenarios, projecting centuries into the future. Each iteration narrows uncertainty, and each refinement tells a more stable story. Some of the 7 comets, once cloaked in ominous rumor, proved to be harmless travelers, their paths missing Earth by millions of kilometers. Others remain stubbornly uncertain, their motions perturbed by outgassing jets or gravitational nudges too subtle to predict precisely. This slow work is not dramatic. It is not the fiery spectacle of an impact, nor the dazzling tail of a comet blazing across the night. It is quiet. Hours of computation, pages of data, whispers of confirmation passed between research teams. Yet in this slowness lies humanity's only defense against fear. For panic thrives on uncertainty, and certainty must be carved from patience. The comets themselves are indifferent. They glide along their paths, shedding vapor and dust, untroubled by the human struggle to measure them. But for us, every calculation is existential. The difference between a miss and a strike is the difference between wonder and extinction, and so the effort continues, relentless, meticulous, almost devotional. Some philosophers of science speak of this as a ritual. Each generation watches the heavens, plots the motions, refines the maps. In the act of narrowing uncertainty, we also remind ourselves of our place, fragile creatures on a small world, striving for foresight against forces beyond control. Certainty, though never perfect, becomes a kind of shelter. In time, the 7 rumored comets will each find their place in the records harmless, dangerous, or lost to the void. But until then, we dwell in the interval between ignorance and knowledge, between fear and calm. It is in this interval that humanity learns the value of patience, of persistence, of trusting that slow work can transform rumor into truth. And perhaps that is the most profound lesson. The cosmos moves at its own pace, but so too does our understanding. Certainty does not come as revelation. It comes as accumulation, a gathering of light across many nights, until at last the path of a comet is no longer mystery, but geometry. Science, like the cosmos it studies, thrives on collisions not only of particles in accelerators, but of ideas in debate. The 7 rumored comets became not only objects in the sky, but sparks in the halls of universities and conferences where astrophysicists gathered to weigh their meaning. Was this sudden clustering an omen of catastrophe, or merely the statistical harvest of better telescopes? Were these icy wanderers ordinary relics of our solar system, or emissaries from realms beyond? One camp argued for simplicity. To them, the comets were fragments of the Oort cloud, nudged inward by the subtle tug of passing stars or the galactic tide. They pointed to simulations showing how clouds of debris orbit the sun loosely, vulnerable to even the gentlest gravitational disturbance. A comet falling inward, even several at once, required no exotic explanation, merely patience and probability. Another camp, however, leaned into anomaly. They noted the unusual inclinations, the high velocities, the spectral compositions that hinted at alien birthplaces. Could some of the 7 be interstellar? If so, they were not local relics, but visitors from distant stellar nurseries, their chemistry encoding conditions never seen in our system. To treat them as ordinary would be to miss an extraordinary truth. And then came the more speculative voices. What if the accelerations observed in some comets were not solely outgassing but evidence of unknown physics interactions with the solar wind we do not yet understand, or subtler forces whispered by the fabric of space-time itself? Such theories walked the fine line between boldness and heresy, stirring fascination in some, skepticism in others. At conferences, the air was charged with both rigor and wonder. Charts of orbital elements flickered on screens, spectra glowed in multicolored graphs, while voices rose to defend one interpretation against another. There was no final verdict, only the recognition that the comets had become more than ice and dust. They had become a battleground for ideas, a test of how science balances skepticism with imagination. Outside the academic walls, the debate echoed differently. To the public, headlines simplified the spectrum of views into binaries, harmless or threatening, ordinary or alien. The richness of debate was flattened into fear or fascination, yet within the scientific community, the diversity of perspectives was its strength, for in the clash of theories lies progress. Each contradiction forces deeper questions, sharper measurements, more ambitious missions. In this way, the 7 comets became catalysts. They forced scientists to confront not only the limits of their instruments, but the limits of their frameworks. Were these icy travelers telling us something about the structure of the solar system, about the frequency of interstellar debris, or about forces yet unnamed? The answers were not clear, but the debates ensured that the questions would not be ignored. Thus, the comets collided not only with sunlight and gravity, but with human curiosity itself. And like all collisions in science, the fragments of argument and speculation may one day assemble into clarity. Until then, the 7 wanderers remain both data and metaphor reminders that truth emerges not from silence, but from the reverberation of ideas against one another. Fear is not always logical. It rises from places deeper than reason, rooted in memory older than language. When humanity hears the rumor of 7 comets inbound, the response is not only curiosity, but trembling, an ancient reflex inherited from ancestors who once saw tailed stars blaze suddenly in the night and believed the world was ending. Even today, with satellites and supercomputers, the heart still responds as it once did beneath stone skies. Psychologists know this well. The human mind magnifies distant threats when their scale is overwhelming. A comet strike is unlikely in any given year, but its consequences are absolute. The imagination leaps past probability into catastrophe, conjuring images of boiling oceans, skies veiled in ash, and cities erased in fire. The same survival instinct that once helped humans fear predators in the dark now misfires against cosmic scales, where the danger is rare but total. Culture amplifies the unease. Films, novels, and television have woven comets into narratives of apocalypse, embedding imagery of fiery impacts deep into collective imagination. Headlines feed the reflex. Killer comet, 7 objects on collision course. Phrases that rarely match scientific nuance, but resonate with archetypal dread. In an era of instant communication, fear spreads faster than data, shaping perception before truth can catch up. Yet fear is not only destructive, it is also connective. It unites humanity across borders, reminding us that all share the same vulnerability. A comet does not distinguish between nations or creeds. Its threat is universal, and so too is the trembling it provokes. This shared unease can inspire cooperation, pushing governments and agencies to take planetary defense seriously, to invest in telescopes and missions that might otherwise languish in obscurity. In this sense, fear is a catalyst, awakening us to our place beneath the stars. But there is a subtler layer still. For many, the dread of comets is not only about physical destruction but about meaning. If 7 icy wanderers truly approached, The question would not only be, will we survive, but why now? Human beings search for patterns, for narrative, for cosmic intention. We ask whether their arrival is chance or destiny, accident or omen. Even in the age of science, we cannot help but weave stories into the silence of the void. The 7 comets, real or rumored, awaken a psychological duality. They remind us of our fragility, and yet they also ignite our imagination. Fear becomes reflection. The night sky, once distant, becomes intimate, its threats and wonders bound directly to our survival. In this way, comets are more than ice and dust. They are mirrors of our psyche, showing us how little control we hold and how much meaning we invent in the face of uncertainty. Thus, the fear they stir is not only natural, it is inevitable. To see them is to see the thinness of our shelter, the brevity of our epoch, and the vastness of forces indifferent to our existence. And yet, to feel that fear is also to feel alive, aware that we are small, but aware nonetheless. When Stephen Hawking spoke of humanity's place in the cosmos, his voice was marked by both awe and warning. He marveled at the beauty of the universe, its elegance in mathematics and its grandeur in scale, yet he never forgot its indifference. Again and again, he cautioned that our species lives precariously, balanced upon a fragile world vulnerable to forces beyond its control. Among those forces, he often listed asteroids and comets, cosmic bullets, whose trajectories may one day intersect our own. Hawking's warning was not idle speculation. He knew the record of Earth's history too well. Mass extinctions triggered by impacts, landscapes remade in hours by bodies that had drifted silently for millennia. He spoke of how even a relatively small comet could unleash devastation, and how civilization might not survive the aftermath. For him, the presence of these icy wanderers was not merely an astronomical curiosity, but an existential reminder. He urged humanity to look outward, to become a multi-planetary species, not out of conquest, but of necessity. To remain confined to Earth was to gamble everything on the absence of catastrophe. A comet strike, a supernova, a vacuum fluctuation, any of these could end us. Survival, he argued, required dispersal. Colonies on the Moon, on Mars, in orbit. Not dreams of science fiction, but lifeboats against inevitability. The rumor of 7 comets inbound resonates with Hawking's echo. Whether real or exaggerated, it brings his words back into focus. For even if none of these 7 threaten Earth, the truth remains, sooner or later, one will. It may not come in our lifetimes, or even in our descendants' lifetimes, but the cosmos is patient, and probability guarantees eventuality. Hawking knew this, and he wanted us to prepare not with fear, but with vision. There is a poignancy in imagining his voice set against the silent glide of these wanderers, his synthetic cadence, measured and deliberate, speaking of humanity's fragility beneath the infinite sky. We are just an advanced breed of monkeys on a minor planet of a very average star. But we can understand the universe. That makes us something very special. And yet, understanding is not enough. Without action, knowledge cannot shield us. In this light, comets are not only threats but teachers. They remind us of the urgency of Hawking's plea, to look beyond the boundaries of Earth, to invest in exploration, to see survival not as luxury but as necessity. They are, in a way, cosmic tutors, pressing upon us the lesson that fragility is not defeat. Fragility is an invitation to adapt, to grow, to reach. So the 7 comets, drifting silently inward, become symbols of his warning. Whether they miss us by millions of kilometers or never existed as a true family at all, their story carries the same moral. The universe is vast, unpredictable, and indifferent, and if we wish to endure, we must take our place among the stars. To understand comets is to hold in one's hand the recipe of both life and death. These fragile wanderers are more than ice and dust. They are archives of chemistry, sealed for billions of years in the cold. Within their frozen hearts lie molecules older than Earth itself, remnants of the nebula from which our sun and planets were born. Each time a comet falls inward, the heat of the sun unlocks that archive, releasing vapors that carry the memory of origins. Spectroscopy has revealed the secrets of these ices. Water, the simplest and most abundant, emerges first, sublimating into great plumes. Alongside it come carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, methane and ammonia. More startling are the organics: formaldehyde, glycine, simple amino acids. When Rosetta's instruments tasted the dust of Comet 67P, they found the building blocks of proteins, hints of prebiotic chemistry. It was as if the comet had carried in its core the whispers of life's beginning, waiting to be spilled across a young world. This is not mere poetry. Many scientists believe that Earth's oceans may have been seeded, at least in part, by comets delivering frozen water during the planet's fiery youth. Along with water came organics, scattered across the surface like seeds in soil. In this sense, comets are gardeners of worlds, carrying fertility across cosmic distances. If life exists elsewhere in the galaxy, perhaps it too was planted by such icy emissaries, drifting between stars as messengers of possibility. But comets are also weapons. The same ice that nurtures can extinguish. A body a few kilometers across carries enough kinetic energy to vaporize oceans and plunge the world into years of darkness. If comets once seeded Earth with life, they may also have pruned it, triggering extinctions that reset the clock of evolution. They are midwives and executioners, nurturing and erasing with equal indifference. For the 7 rumored comets, this paradox deepens their mystery. Are they bearers of ancient chemistry, waiting to reveal secrets of star birth and cosmic inheritance? Or are they harbingers of ruin, potential agents of extinction? Perhaps they are both at once reminders that the line between creation and destruction is razor thin, written in velocities and masses, in the geometry of chance. To study their composition is to stare into the mirror of our own past. The hydrogen isotopes in their water may tell us whether our oceans share their origin. Their organics may illuminate the pathways from chemistry to biology. Each comet is a frozen time capsule, offering answers to questions humanity has asked since the first night we looked upward. Where did we come from? Are we alone? And yet, their destructive potential lingers like a shadow across those questions. For every gift they might carry, there is also the possibility of erasure. They are, in the truest sense, cosmic paradoxes, givers and takers, cradles and graves, moving silently through the night. Night falls, and the stars return, indifferent to human worry. Yet beneath their calm, the rumor of 7 comets persists. Humanity waits uneasy, fascinated, uncertain, caught between the ordinary rhythm of life and the knowledge that somewhere in the dark, immense bodies of ice and stone may be gliding silently closer. There is a peculiar tension in this waiting. Unlike storms or earthquakes, comets move on timescales that resist immediacy. Their approach is measured in months, years, even centuries. They are neither imminent nor remote, but suspended close enough to imagine, distant enough to doubt. It is this in-between state that unsettles most deeply, the knowledge of possibility without the clarity of certainty. Astronomers continue their watch. Each night of observation refines the paths, narrowing the margins of error, pushing probabilities outward towards safety. Yet the public, hungry for answers, finds little comfort in mathematics. For what they feel is not probability but presence. The comets become symbols, looming in imagination even as they remain pinpricks of light in telescopes. And so, humanity waits. Some respond with fear, scanning news for updates, envisioning disaster scenarios of fire and ash. Others respond with wonder, finding poetry in the thought of ancient travelers returning to the sun's embrace. For them, comets are reminders not of death but of connection, frozen relics carrying the memory of cosmic dawn. Both reactions are true, both rooted in the same recognition that we are not separate from the cosmos, but vulnerable within it. The waiting stretches across cultures and generations. Communities gather to watch the sky when comets brighten enough to be seen by the naked eye. Children stare upward, untroubled by probability, enchanted by the luminous tales that sweep across constellations. Elders recall stories of omens and past visitations. The rumor of 7 comets does not belong only to science. It belongs to humanity as myth renewed or reborn. Yet beneath the poetry lies preparation. Governments fund observatories. Agencies draft planetary defense strategies. Missions are proposed to intercept, to analyze, perhaps even to deflect. Waiting does not mean idleness. It means vigilance, an acknowledgement that the cosmos is not static but alive, and that our survival depends on watching its motions with care. And still, when the calculations are set aside, the most profound response remains the simplest: to step outside on a clear night, to gaze upward, and to feel the ancient unease and wonder stir together, to recognize that in the silence above, bodies older than Earth drift toward us, indifferent yet intimate, their presence turning the ordinary night sky into a stage of cosmic drama. Waiting beneath the stars, humanity remembers both its fragility and its grandeur. Fragility, because the heavens hold forces that could erase us in an instant. Grandeur, because we alone, among all known beings, can perceive those forces, measure them, and prepare. The 7 comets, real or imagined, thus become a meditation on what it means to live aware of the infinite, to fear, to wonder, and to wait. Every comet is a mirror. It reflects not only the sun's light, but our own gaze, what we choose to see in it, what we fear, what we hope. The 7 rumored wanderers, gliding silently through space, are less about their icy nuclei than about the stories we weave around them. They are pieces of frozen matter, yes, but they are also lenses through which humanity examines itself. When people hear of comets, some think first of doom impacts, extinctions, fire in the skies. Others think of origins, oceans delivered drop by drop, amino acids scattered like seeds. Both are true, and both reveal our need for meaning. We do not simply measure orbits, we ask why. Why are they here now? What are they saying about us? In truth, comets care nothing for our questions. They move along the dictates of gravity and chemistry, indifferent to what civilizations believe. Yet the human mind cannot resist making them symbols. To poets, they are messengers. To prophets, they are warnings. To scientists, they are laboratories of creation. Each perspective is less about the comets than about ourselves. Our fears of annihilation, our yearning for connection, our hunger to know the story of our own birth. The 7 comets become, then, a cosmic Rorschach test. For some, they embody fragility, the reminder that life hangs by the thread of celestial chance. For others, they represent resilience, proof that even across billions of years, fragments of ice can endure. They show us our contradictions. We dread them even as we long to touch them. We fear their destruction even as we hope they hold the chemistry of our beginnings. Perhaps this is the deepest meaning comets give us. They remind us of the duality at the heart of existence. Creation and destruction are not opposites but companions, entwined in every star, every planet, every life. The same universe that gives birth to galaxies also births black holes. The same Earth that nurtures life also hosts the forces that can extinguish it, and comets, in their fragile brilliance, embody this truth more starkly than any other celestial body. In their icy glow, we see ourselves not masters of the universe, but participants in its vast drama, subject to its accidents, yet gifted with the awareness to witness them. Comets remind us that meaning is not given, it is made. It is we who choose whether they are omens or treasures, terrors or teachers. And so, as the seven wanderers trace their silent paths, they hold up a mirror. What we see reflected depends not on them, but on us, our science, our imagination, our courage to face the uncertainty of the cosmos and find within it a story worthy of our fragile, fleeting lives. And so the story drifts towards silence. The seven comets, whether real or imagined, remain suspended in the vast night, their motions slow, their destinies indifferent. They will not answer the questions we ask of them. They will not comfort us with certainty, nor terrify us with intent. They are only wanderers, silent, ancient, patient, passing through a cosmos that has seen countless such journeys before. In their presence, however fleeting, humanity is reminded of scale. Our world is a fragile island of warmth in a sea so wide that even light, the swiftest of messengers, takes millennia to cross it. Against that immensity, our fears and hopes seem both insignificant and profound. Insignificant because the universe does not bend to them. Profound because we alone, among all we know, can look upward and feel them. Perhaps the comets will pass harmlessly, their tails glowing briefly in the sky before fading into darkness. Perhaps one someday will strike, and the cycle of creation and destruction will renew itself in fire. Both futures belong equally to the laws of physics, equally to the fabric of chance. But tonight, beneath the stars, neither has yet come to pass. Tonight, there is only wonder, only the quiet acknowledgement that we are alive in a universe still rich with mystery. The seven comets drift on. They carry with them the memory of stellar nurseries, the chemistry of beginnings, the threat of endings. They are cradles and scythes, teachers and omens, indifferent and yet luminous with meaning because we give them meaning. They remind us that existence is precarious, that survival is never guaranteed, and that awareness itself is a miracle. And so the narration slows. The voice softens, the cadence lengthens. Words dissolve into images of the Earth turning quietly beneath its fragile sky, of the comets gliding in darkness, of stars scattered like embers across an infinite sea. The fear subsides, the wonder deepens, and the mind rests upon a single truth, that to be here, to witness, is enough. The seven comets vanish into the silence from which they came. The night remains, vast and eternal. And in that night, humanity dreams of beginnings, of endings, and of the fragile beauty of being caught between them. Now the story fades, like the tail of a comet dissolving into the distance. The pace slows, the imagery softens, and the silence of the cosmos gathers once more. There is no alarm here, no urgency, only the steady rhythm of existence unfolding as it always has. The comets pass, or they do not. The earth turns, oceans breathe, winds wander through forests. Life continues in its fragile persistence. Imagine lying beneath the sky, the constellations quiet above. Somewhere out there, seven wanderers drift, but they are not rushing. They move with the patience of ice, with the calm of orbits measured in millennia. To them, time is vast. To us, it is fleeting. And yet, for a moment, their paths and ours overlap, and we are reminded of the immensity to which we belong. Let the fear ease away. Impacts and extinctions are not this night, not this breath. Tonight is only a pause in the great unfolding, a chance to look upward and feel the depth of stillness that the stars provide. The universe is immense, yes, but it is also serene. Its silence is not menace but embrace. In that silence, we find reflection. We are small, yet luminous with awareness. Fragile, yet capable of understanding the very fabric of space-time. Temporary, yet able to imagine eternity. This is the gift. The comets leave us not terror, but perspective. They pass, and in passing, they remind us how precious every moment is beneath the stars. The night deepens, the voice quiets, the imagery fades into darkness, and in that darkness, the heart rests, soothed by the infinite calm. The comets glide onward, eternal and indifferent. We close our eyes, knowing that the universe continues its slow, patient drift. Sweet dreams,